Nigeria, a land of vibrant culture and immense potential, bears the heavy burden of corruption. Like a disease, it infects various sectors, hindering progress and eroding trust. Among the hardest hit is the trucking industry, a vital artery in the nation's economic bloodstream. Imagine a truck driver, hard-working and honest, navigating the treacherous roads of Nigeria. Yet at every turn, he faces a system rigged against him, where corruption demands its due. This is the reality for many in Nigeria's trucking industry, plagued by bribery and extortion. Delays caused by corrupt practices lead to spoiled goods and lost revenue. The livelihoods of truck drivers are further jeopardized.
Corruption in Nigeria is not merely a problem. It is a deeply entrenched reality. It permeates all levels of society, from petty bribes exchanged for minor favors to grand schemes of embezzlement that rob the nation of its wealth. This culture of corruption is fueled by a complex interplay of factors, including poverty, greed, and a lack of accountability. For many Nigerians, survival hinges on navigating a system where rules are often bent or broken for personal gain. The lack of economic opportunities and social safety nets drives individuals to engage in corrupt practices, perpetuating a vicious cycle. This is particularly true in the trucking industry, where drivers often face low wages, extortionate demands from corrupt officials, and a lack of protection from exploitation. The pervasiveness of corruption in Nigeria has created a climate of cynicism and distrust. Citizens lose faith in institutions meant to serve them, while those in positions of power exploit their authority for personal enrichment. This erosion of trust has a corrosive effect on society, hindering development and perpetuating inequality. To understand corruption in Nigeria's trucking industry, one must examine the systemic issues that allow it to thrive. A lack of transparency and accountability creates fertile ground for corrupt practices. Weak law enforcement and a culture of impunity embolden perpetrators. Despite reform pronouncements, the Nigerian government struggles to address corruption. Political patronage, weak institutions, and lack of political will are key factors. The judiciary, meant to uphold justice, is often hampered by internal corruption. The private sector also lacks accountability. Businesses engage in corrupt practices to gain an unfair advantage. Bribes circumvent regulations and secure contracts, perpetuating corruption. Truck drivers, the unsung heroes of Nigeria's economy, bear the brunt of this pervasive corruption. They are often subjected to extortion by law enforcement officials at countless checkpoints that dot the nation's highways. These checkpoints, ostensibly established for security purposes, have become synonymous with bribery and harassment. Drivers are often forced to pay arbitrary fees for minor infractions, real or fabricated. Refusal to comply can lead to delays, harassment, or even violence. This constant pressure to pay bribes eats into their already meager earnings, making it increasingly difficult to make ends meet. For many, the choice is stark: comply with corrupt demands or risk losing their livelihood. The impact of this corruption extends beyond financial hardship. The constant stress and fear take a toll on the mental and physical well-being of truck drivers. Long hours on the road, coupled with the constant threat of extortion, create hazardous working conditions. This not only jeopardizes the lives of drivers, but also poses a risk to other road users. Section 5. Extortion at every turn, checkpoints and bribes. Checkpoints, instead of serving as symbols of security and order, have become notorious symbols of corruption in Nigeria. Truck drivers, in particular, dread encountering these checkpoints, knowing that they will likely be subjected to extortion and harassment. The sheer number of checkpoints, often arbitrarily placed, adds to the frustration and delays. At each checkpoint, drivers are typically confronted by a gauntlet of officials, each with their own demands. Police officers, customs officials, road safety officers, and even local government officials have been known to extort bribes from truck drivers. The reasons for demanding bribes are often flimsy, ranging from minor traffic violations to fabricated offenses. Drivers who refuse to pay bribes face a range of consequences. They may be detained for hours, their vehicles impounded, or their goods confiscated. In some cases, drivers have reported being physically assaulted or threatened with violence. This culture of impunity emboldens corrupt officials, perpetuating the cycle of extortion. Section 6. The weight of injustice. Corruption's impact on livelihoods. Corrupt practices in Nigeria's trucking industry devastate the livelihoods of truck drivers and their families. Constant extortion eats into their meager earnings, making it hard to provide for basic needs. Many take on debt or work longer hours, risking their health and safety. The financial strain also affects their families, forcing children to drop out of school. Wives and mothers manage households with dwindling incomes, often resorting to desperate measures. Corruption breeds a sense of hopelessness and despair. Section 7. A nation held hostage. The broader consequences. The corruption plaguing Nigeria's trucking industry is not an isolated problem. It is a symptom of a deeper malaise that affects the nation as a whole. The consequences of this corruption are far-reaching, impacting not just the trucking sector but the entire economy and society. The increased transportation costs due to bribes and delays are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for goods and services. This fuels inflation, erodes purchasing power, and disproportionately affects the poor and most vulnerable. The lack of accountability and transparency also discourages foreign investment, hindering economic growth and job creation. Moreover, the culture of corruption undermines the rule of law and erodes trust in institutions. Citizens become disillusioned with a system that seems rigged against them, leading to apathy, cynicism, and a reluctance to participate in civic life. This creates a vicious cycle where corruption thrives and progress is stymied. Section 8. Hope on the horizon. Technology as a tool for transparency. Despite the deeply entrenched nature of corruption in Nigeria's trucking industry, there is hope for change. Technology, if implemented effectively, has the potential to increase transparency and accountability, making it more difficult for corrupt practices to thrive. One promising solution is the adoption of electronic payment systems for road taxes, permits, and other fees. This would eliminate the need for cash transactions, reducing opportunities for bribery and extortion. Real-time tracking systems can also be used to monitor the movement of trucks, making it easier to identify and address delays caused by corrupt practices. Furthermore, online platforms can empower truck drivers to report instances of corruption and extortion without fear of reprisal. These platforms can provide a safe space for drivers to share their experiences, access legal aid, and connect with anti-corruption organizations. By amplifying the voices of those most affected by corruption, technology can help to shift the balance of power. Section 9. The power of the people. Community action and advocacy. While technology can play a crucial role in combating corruption, it is not a panacea. Real and lasting change requires a bottom-up approach, driven by the collective action of citizens, civil society organizations, and ethical leaders within the trucking industry. Community-based monitoring initiatives, where citizens work together to monitor checkpoints and report instances of corruption, have shown promise in other sectors. Similar initiatives can be adapted for the trucking industry, empowering drivers and communities to hold corrupt officials accountable. Advocacy groups and civil society organizations also have a crucial role to play in raising awareness about the issue, advocating for policy reforms, and providing legal support to victims of corruption. By working together, these stakeholders can create a united front against corruption and demand greater transparency and accountability from those in power. Section 10. Towards a brighter future. Rebuilding trust, reforming systems. Addressing the systemic issues that enable corruption in Nigeria's trucking industry will require a multi-pronged approach, strengthening law enforcement agencies, reforming the judiciary, and promoting ethical leadership are crucial steps in this direction. Holding corrupt officials accountable, regardless of their position or connections, is essential for restoring public trust. This requires a robust legal framework, an independent and efficient judiciary, and a culture of zero tolerance for corruption within government agencies. Equally important is the need to address the underlying socioeconomic factors that contribute to corruption. Investing in education, creating economic opportunities, and strengthening social safety nets can help to reduce poverty and inequality, making it less likely for individuals to resort to corrupt practices for survival. Section 11. Conclusion: a long road ahead. The road to a corruption-free Nigeria is long and arduous. It requires a collective effort from all segments of society, from government officials to truck drivers to ordinary citizens. However, the journey towards a brighter future begins with acknowledging the problem, understanding its root causes, and committing to finding solutions. By harnessing the power of technology, empowering communities, and strengthening institutions, Nigeria can create a more just and equitable society where truck drivers and all citizens are treated with dignity and respect. The fight against corruption is not just about punishing wrongdoers, it is about building a nation where integrity, transparency, and accountability are the norm, not the exception. The journey may be challenging, but the destination is worth striving for. A corruption-free Nigeria is not a utopian dream, it is an achievable goal, one that requires the collective will and unwavering commitment of all who believe in a better future for the nation.